The Challenge Cup gets underway this weekend alongside its big brother. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. The Challenge Cup kicks off this weekend. A lot of focus will be on the Champions Cup instead of this competition. But I say year after year, this is a great chance for maybe less fancy teams or teams who had a bit of a slump last year to get their hands on a trophy this season. And, we've seen in the past, the likes of the Sharks, what it means to actually get to that final and lift that trophy as well. So, for me, it's a no-brainer that teams should be taking this competition seriously. They don't always take it seriously, unfortunately, but I think if they get deeper into the competition, certainly when that just idea of getting to a final and potentially lifting a trophy kicks in, then we do see teams really kind of focusing in on this competition. So what we're going to do here is we are going to talk about the pools first of all. Then we will have a look at the fixtures for the first round and make some predictions as well. So Pool 1, we got Ospreys in there, and haven't had a brilliant start to the season so far. They've only had one win in the URC. They're sitting down in 13th place there, and I think they're a team that would like to get maybe a bit of a bounce in terms of their form by piggybacking on, maybe get some success in this competition and have that help them domestically as well. Then we have another URC team, Zebre, in there, who've had somewhat better start, maybe a little dip at the moment, but they've had 2 wins so far this season, sitting in 11th. They have had though a run, I think is it 3 defeats at the minute. And again, maybe looking for a bit of a bounce to help them, kind of on both fronts, really. Then we have Montpellier there from the top 14, and they're maybe a little bit higher compared to other teams, like sitting 7th in the top 14. So in the top half just about of that competition, but it's a decent standing for a team that is in this competition this season. And again, they're one of those teams you look at it from the start and think they've got a decent shot of going deep into the competition. But it's about really, I think, with the French teams, whether they take it seriously enough and whether they take it seriously, serious early in the competition so that they don't end up with a poor draw if they do get into the knockout stages. Then we got another top 14 team, US Montauban, not doing so well domestically at the moment. Like they're second last in the top 14, just 1 win for them this season so far out of 11 games. And one of those teams, I think that if things are go okay for them and maybe the first couple of rounds, they may keep focus on this competition. If it doesn't, then they're just going to say no, just focus on trying to stay in the top 14. And, I think that's probably going to be the way they go this year in this competition, honestly. Then we have Black Line, one of the invitees this year, and they've been in a couple of years. It's great to see them there. It's great to see that they have had chances in this competition. For me, I'd like to see, more clubs like Black Line being invited into this competition, looking at the likes of, maybe Portugal, Spain, and Germany, a few other countries like that, where maybe you could get a quasi-national team to be playing in this competition and fill out a bit more, because we've only got 18 teams in this competition with 24 at the Champions Cup level, and it'd be nice for this competition to be a bit more isolated, rather than a lot of the time the favourites later on are the teams that drop down from the Champions Cup. And I'd rather see this be a standalone competition with 24 teams, the way that the Champions Cup is. But it's one of those things. I think Turkey's voting for Christmas that a lot of these unions and leagues, etc., don't want to expand too much because they don't want too much competition, and they can't really see the fact that if you make the pie bigger, even if you have a smaller slice of a much larger pie, you're going to make more money. But it's going to take some more commitment, I think, to the future for that to happen. And then the other team then is Connacht, Irish province, that I will be supporting through this competition. So any of my opinions on them will definitely be biased. So take anything I say on them with a pinch of salt, but I do try and check my bias as much as I can. If you watch my stuff, you can kind of see that, especially, around Leinster. I'm like, my first team is Leinster, but Connacht here. So for them, again, they're a team that have done okay in this competition previously, but you feel like they have the wherewithal to maybe make it deeper into the competition, but it's just that inconsistency from them in terms of performance. And, with, Lancaster in there now as the head coach, he's obviously trying to fix that for them. Hasn't quite worked out so far this season. They're sitting in 9th in the URC, 2 wins out of 5. But, you feel like they should have the wherewithal at least to make it into the knockout stages. And then from there, whether they can get that consistent run through the knockouts is the big thing, because if for a team like them is that, again, it's been able to put like 3 or 4 really good performances back to back, and it's been a long time since we've seen a Connacht team do that. But I think in this pool they should definitely be competitive, and I think it's in terms of the teams, other than really Montpellier, there isn't a team that really stands out as being, potentially a little bit ahead of the others. And therefore, I think it's going to be a good scrap in that pool for the knockout places. Then on to Pool 2, then we have Lyon, Olympique, Universitaire. So these guys beaten finalists last year. They've had previous winners, I think, as well, of this competition, maybe 3 or 4 seasons ago, I think. But, they've been to finals in this competition. They know how to kind of steer themselves through the competition. I think that's going to be stand to them, certainly, in what looks like, a pool that has more competitive teams, let's say, than Pool 1, certainly. And yeah, I think they're going to be one of the standouts in the competition this year, as they have been in previous years as well. So, at the moment, let's just have a look where they are in the top 14. So in the top 14, they're sitting 12th out of 14. But there is like a gap between themselves and Montauban. So they're on 5 wins out of 6. And on 23 points. And then Montauban are on 7 points on just 1 win. So there is a sizable gap between themselves. And then the teams above them, the likes of Racing La Rochelle and Clermont, are only 1 win, or 4 points ahead of them in the table there as well. So, 12th in the table, but certainly, they're kind of 1 win away from being kind of mid-table, I think, there. So, again, should be fairly competitive. They always take this competition seriously, which I really like as well. Then we have Newcastle Red Bulls. So, they've been taken over by Red Bull. They've obviously have massive ambition for the club, but at the moment they're sitting bottom of the Premiership on, no wins from 6 games. So, not expecting a whole heap from them in this competition. They may, though, pick up a win, and that win, although for themselves may not, be enough to get them through, it may kind of scupper somebody else's chances of going through. So, that could be interesting there. But again, they could pick up a little bit of form in here and be able to, perform up to a higher standard in this competition than they are in the Premiership. Then next you have the Dragons, and the Dragons, another winless team so far this year, but they have had 2 draws, and they gave Leinster a really good game there as well in the URC last time out. So, they're not the team that have been kind of adrift at the bottom of the URC for the past few seasons. They've progressed a little bit, maybe not as much as they want and as the fans want, but you can see they're getting that little bit more competitive. But is it going to be enough to get them through this pool? I'm not sure. It's one of these ones I think they're going to have a decent start and then be able to build on that. Next then, the URC team, we have Benetton Rugby. So Benetton, powerhouse from Italy, really, and will be disappointed that they're not in the Champions Cup this year. But again, dropping down here, maybe it's a chance for them to make their way to a final and get their hands on a trophy. At the moment, they're sitting in 12th in the URC. They got 2 wins out of 6 there, and not in as good form. We've seen them previously in the URC, but again, I think if they get a couple of good results early on, they're a team that can go deep into this competition. Then we have another URC team, the Lions. So the Lions, one of the better placed URC teams in this competition this year. I think there's 2 other teams above them in the league at the minute that are also in this competition. So there's actually some strong URC teams this year. But Lions at the moment in 7th, 3 wins out of 3, and the only thing I would say to that is those 3 wins have come in South Africa, 2 at home and 1 at Loftus Versfeld against the Bulls last time out. That was a really impressive performance from them. So they're coming in on some decent form, 3 wins on the bounce coming in. So they'll be looking to certainly make an impression in this competition. And then finally then we have Perpignan rounding out this pool. So Perpignan at the minute are rock bottom of the top 14. They've got no wins so far this season, only picked up 1 match point, and they've lost 11 out of 11 games. So, in terms of just the name, obviously it's a big club, but not performing well at the minute. And, it would be a good scalp, I think, for some of these other teams to take if they can. Okay, so that's Pool 2, then on to Pool 3. So Pool 3, we start with the Toyota Cheetahs from South Africa, another invitational club. And again, great to see them in here. It was a pity they were in the, what was it called? They were like just before the URC. Was it called the Pro 14? That's what it was. In the Pro 14, so the competition before the URC, they were in there until the big 4 from South Africa came in and they were kicked out. Pity that, really, because it would have been nice to have them stay in there, even if they weren't brilliantly competitive. But still, again, for me, my mindset is expansionist for rugby, and I want to see more teams evolve. As many as we can, really. But yeah, Cheetahs in there. They've shown previously they can be competitive in this competition without really threatening the pointy end of the tournament. But they certainly can be a stumbling block for some of the other teams in their pool that may have some ambitions, but they're in a pool with some massive teams in terms of European pedigree. First off, we got Cardiff Rugby, who, in terms of maybe some of the other names in the pool, don't have that pedigree at the top level in Europe, but they're going really well this season. At the minute, Cardiff 2nd place in the URC. They've got 5 wins out of 6, and on some really good form. And I think they'll be looking to, again, if they can get out of the pool, because this pool, at least name-wise, is certainly the most competitive of any of the pools. But if they can get themselves into the knockout stages, again, a young team full of confidence, they could go deep into the competition. Then next we have Exeter Chiefs, former Champions Cup winners, and a team that, again, in terms of just European pedigree, really have it. But they kind of last year kind of fell down a little bit, and ended up in this competition. But this year they bounced back. They're second in the Premiership at the moment, or I think it's called the Prem now, right? In the Prem, 4 wins and a draw out of their 6 games so far, and only behind Bath, who sit top of the table. So, this is a team full of quality who, again, if they take the competition seriously and don't rest players, could make their way through this pool and deep into knockout stages. Next, then we have Racing 92. And, another team more used to being in the Champions Cup, but, again, another chance for them to maybe reset a little bit. No, not doing that great in the top 14, and they could get a bit of a bounce from this. They're 11th place in the top 14, and they have 6 wins out of their 11 games. But, there's a ton of teams from, we talked about Lyon earlier. We got Lyon, Racing, La Rochelle, Clermont, Castres, Montpellier, and Bordeaux, all on 5 or 6 wins and within like 6 points of each other. So going from 12th up to 6th. So top 14, you get a couple of wins and you can go shooting up the table. And Racing certainly have the ability in this competition to get results. Next, then we have Stade Francais, and again another team that we're more used to seeing really at the Champions Cup level, but they haven't really been doing it in recent years. And again, though, a little bit resurgent this year. They're in 4th in the top 14, but they're, again, they've got 6 wins from this year, and so have Racing. So Stade Francais are in 4th place and Racing in 11th, both on 6 wins. But Stade Francais obviously much better at picking up those bonus points to lift themselves higher up the table. But again, it's just getting more and more competitive in this pool. And finally, then we have Ulster, to round out what for me looks like basically the pool of death for these guys this year. And Ulster in the URC at the minute, they're sitting in 4th place, 4 wins out of 5. They had a game called off against Edinburgh, so they don't have 6 games played as anyone else. And if they had, possibly they could be higher up the league. There's no guarantee that they would have won that game, but still doing pretty well in 4th place. And another team who are more used to being in the Champions Cup, but dipped last year, seem to come back better this year. And the fact that under Richie Murphy now seem to be gelling a bit more. He's brought through players that he wanted to get up to speed in the squad there as well. And, Ulster seem to be improving all the time. So yeah, this pool just looks far more difficult than the other 2 pools in this one. You look at it there again, you've got, Cardiff, who are doing really well in the URC, but then the others, Exeter, former Champions Cup winners, Racing, have been deep in the Champions Cup before. So Stade, Ulster, way back in the 90s, Champions Cup winners, but they're competitive there every year as well. So I think it's going to be a hell of a slog in that pool. Okay, so now let's have a look at the fixtures for the weekend. So we're going to start with a ding-dong battle. So on Friday the 5th of December, Pool 3, Round 1, 8 o'clock kickoff, and it's at the Affidea Stadium. So I think what used to be the Kingspan Ulster Rugby versus Racing 92. And yeah, what a massive game to start off. Again, it's a fixture that looks more at home in the Champions Cup than the Challenge Cup. But Ulster, I think, in better form this year, and because of that, I'm going to go for an Ulster win in that one. Then on to the Saturday games. So starting with the 1 o'clock kickoff, Pool 2, and it's in Ellis Park. This is the Lions versus Benetton Rugby. So all URC clash here. As I said, the Lions have been going really well in South Africa, and especially at home this season. Benetton haven't been travelling all that well, and that's why they're maybe a bit further down the table than we're used to seeing them. I'm going to go for a Lions win in that one. On to Pool 3 then. 1 o'clock kickoff as well. Stade John Bowen, and it is Stade Francais Paris against Cardiff Rugby. And, Cardiff doing really well in the URC, but a big ask for them to go away to Stade and pick up a win. And, I'm definitely going to be cheering them to the rafters in that game, but going to go up my head in this one, say Stade for the win there. On to Pool 1 then. 3:15 kickoff at the Alcala Stadium. And this is Black Line versus Montpellier. Montpellier in their pool certainly look to be the team that are having the best season so far, and look the team with maybe the pedigree in there, but really tough ask for them going away to Black Line first up. Can definitely see them going there and getting a win, but Black Line are going to be competitive, and I'm actually going to go for, don't know whether it be an upset, because Black Line at home are really tough to beat, but I'm going to go for Black Line to win that one. On to Pool 2 then. 5:30 kickoff on Saturday at the MacLeod Stadium, the Gerard. And this is Lyon Olympique Universitaire versus Newcastle Red Bulls. So, as I said, Lyon have massive pedigree in this competition. Newcastle, rock bottom of the Premiership, haven't got a win so far this season. Got to be a Lyon win for me. Okay, then on to Pool 1. 8 o'clock kickoff at the Stade Sergio Lanfranchi. Zebre versus US Montauban. Zebre have been absolutely exceptional at home this season. And, I think only Stormers who were winning the URC at the minute have gone there and won so far this season. And I think US Montauban won't be able to do that. So I'm going to go for a Zebre win there. Then on to the Sunday games. So Pool 2, a 1 o'clock kickoff at the Stade Amé Giral, and it is Perpignan versus the Dragons. And, two teams, certainly Perpignan not having the best start to the season. Dragons, they haven't got a win, but again, they've been far more competitive. But, Perpignan, even though they're bottom of the table, in the top 14. This is two teams who've not won a game so far this season, but I think I have to edge towards Perpignan. I think just because they're at home for that one, it would be a massive, G up for the Dragons if they could go away to France and get a win as their first win of the season. But I think Perpignan are going to win that one. Then we're on to Pool 1, and this is the 3:15 kickoff at the Dunraven Brewery Field. It's Ospreys versus Connacht Rugby, and another URC, all URC clash in this one. I think Ospreys at home definitely going to be a tough ask for Connacht, who again not the most consistent team, but I think this one I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to go for a Connacht win there. On to Pool 3 then. Last game of the round. 5:30 kickoff at Sandy Park. This one is Exeter Chiefs versus Toyota Cheetahs. And, Exeter again, second in the Premiership at the moment, flying so far this season. And, we've seen them in recent years getting to, semi-finals of the Champions Cup. So in this one, Cheetahs, I think, going to be competitive at home, but having to go away to Sandy Park, I think Exeter take the win there. Okay, so that's a look at the pools and the fixtures for round 1. Let me know what you think down in the comments.